The only reason that I get emotional is it's so wonderful that I can't believe I have this life. What does the people say? Oh, I cry at a good steak. Well, I don't cry at a good steak, but I sure do cry for all the lucky things I've had happen to me.
Well, this film, I would do anything that Jim asked me to do, and to get the opportunity to read a film that Jim had written was just a dream of mine. And so that was really, attracted is an understatement.
I have a disease that is more common in women than men. However, men do get it. It's called autosclerosis. And essentially what happens is that those little bones in the middle ear, the anvil and the stirrup and so forth, they become very soft and sludgy.
That, I'm really proud to be a transgendered female. It's okay for Isis to feel like a woman. She is a woman. She's a transgendered woman. As far as I'm considered, her whole life she will always be that. We need to know that we have pride in the people that we are. Some people pass. Some people it's very important to them.
I think everything that I've written comes generally from the heart, although the process of putting it together is often more of a cerebral effort. I think I often play around with different concepts and ways of putting songs together or putting shows together, but the initial thrust.
Hello, I'm George Kennedy. As I wrote this in my office recently, it was September 11th, 2011. In a different office 10 years before, I sat before a TV watching the transformation of the World Trade.
A long time ago, I was at Warner Brothers doing the Lawman television series, and I walked into a restaurant for lunch, the nearby Warner Brothers, and a gentleman walked up to me and asked if I would give an autograph to his daughter. And I said, certainly. And he said, well, do you mind walking over to her because she's in a wheelchair? I said,
well, I did have to audition, but Carl Withers and I both had the same agent. And so my agent knew about the project, early, because Carl, took part in the writing
I see.
The first one. He came up with the idea of Apollo Creed being Muhammad Ali.
I wouldn't have done the film if they didn't let me come out walking as a cripple and then getting my cane stuck into a cobblestone and then doing a forward somersault and then bouncing up, and they all applauded.
I think in life, if you're a creative person, you need somebody to come with you who says how great you are. If you're a person who can't say how great you are yourself, I was never good at blowing my own horn, as they say, because my mother and father said, don't do that.
Just make sure you need to act. It's not enough to like it. It's not enough to want it. It's got to satisfy a real need in you, because otherwise you won't be able to tolerate the bullshit, which you'll inevitably find.
I wanted to put on her fur coat. I think they had to get another one that looked similar to it. Didn't I get her fur coat out of the closet or something like this? But they had supplanted it with the non-Elizabeth Taylor fur coat. So I got it on, but it didn't belong to Elizabeth.
And I literally read the script at red lights. I just was trying. The script was called Solo at that time, and I read it. And I walked into the office, and Mr. Felton said, "What do you think of the script?" And I said, "Well, it's James Bond on television." And he said, "That's it." He said, "Don't say that though, because he said Ian Fleming and I are friends, and that's going to cause a problem."
I'm an alcoholic because George Lucas ruined my life. And I mean that in the nicest possible way. 57 years ago, I did his little Star Wars film, a cult film that then went on to redefine what they laughingly refer to as the face of cinema.
A lot of artists aren't getting paid full scale for their art, and the internet, because of downloading and things like that, is kind of like a black hole, and it's hard to audit, it's hard to get accounting, and it's not that it's just about the money, but it's about justice and fairness.
I think the one I enjoyed most, because being a ham, of course, I did more work in one show, and that was when I dreamt I was going to marry Superman. And I had this, gorgeous gown. Another one I liked when Jack and I did our Egyptian thing,
yes,
and I love that black wig I had.
As an actor, words like that are anathema, because you can't put a label on yourself, otherwise you can't play it. Anything cool, as far as I'm concerned, if I'm playing something that you call a villain, I'm playing a perfectly nice person who just wants stuff.
One of the things I was attracted to with The Loop was I didn't know where this story was going, and I loved its curves and turns and twists. It feels like life to me. I mean, that's what my life looks like. Not that I have parrots flying in my kitchen, but life's very unexpected.
In the movie, the pump scene happens, and then they go to a scene later at night where I come out and kiss teacher, and she says, "I love Helen." I think they didn't need to do that, but that's my personal opinion, and it's the first time I've ever expressed it.
I had no idea of how I learned cinema because I didn't study cinema. I didn't go to film school. I didn't learn how to write. I was on a different path. I was training to be, all of my background is in painting and architecture, not movies.
Well, there are two Oscar Wildes, and of course, my show covers both the two. One before he went into prison, when he was absolutely la crème de la crème in London, Paris, everywhere.
Well, it's like everybody, as I said, has gone through some tragedy in some way, shape, or form, or if they haven't, they're very lucky. And I don't see them just going down the street and grabbing someone off or someone they don't know, putting a mic in their face and say, "Hey, listen, talk about that car."
A couple of nights ago, I couldn't even sleep afterwards, and that's got to do with being a good film. I just thought it was a beautiful movie, and it's just always exciting to be involved in something like that. I think people are really going to love it, and they're going to watch it for a long time.
But he's very nice man. And he supports one of the wonderful, very, very simple, very poor film from Kazakhstan. And he supported, and it was strange for me. How could it be possible? To someone like Quentin Tarantino,
le système étant que d'abord, lisez donc les 70 pages qui nous séparent d'entre hier et aujourd'hui dans le tournage, tous les jours, beaucoup de conversations, énormément. Et donc lui, j'ai regardé un jour son scénario, j'étais halluciné de voir qu'il y a des fils.
Well, I'm happy to be here. I just drove in from my new house in Woodland Hills, and well, thank you very much. I have a new house, and I have ants in my house. Have you ever looked very closely at a trail of ants? Have you ever looked? It looks like a little freeway. Have you noticed this? They're cutting each other off.
because of All in the Family, it was the episode of All in the Family that I did that Danny saw that made him call me in for an interview when they were looking for somebody to replace the other character. So I never auditioned. I just went in and he saw the show.
I'd finished a series called The Manhunter for CBS, and it was a year or so later. And I was leaving in the airport. I had my golf clubs, I had a blazer on, and a bunch of black teenagers ran up to me because they recognized me from The Manhunter, and I was chatting with them. And this friend of mine who's a writer who's written a number of books was looking and thought,
well, Logan, I started off with Looney Tunes, I guess you'd have to say. In the movies, I was in Who Framed Roger Rabbit as Yosemite Sam, coming over the wall saying, "My biscuits is burning." Remember that? After that, I got onto TV with Steven Spielberg's.
I have very good memories of filming that because when we filmed, we'd done a lot of rehearsal. And when we filmed, the wardrobe department gave me brand new shoes because the rehearsal shoes were kind of thrashed. And they forgot to put the special rubber soles so I wouldn't slip.
What happened was the script came to me in August, exactly, I think around this 25 years ago, this would be this year. Wow. And I read the script, and I just immediately assumed that they were going to ask me to read for Johnny Caspar.
You were Johnny.
I thought I was, because I understood the role so well.
Thank you all for this wonderful honor. I'm having the best time of my life. I'm 71 tonight, and I'm kicking, honey. I have 3 glorious grandchildren to say, Nanny, you rock. I love working with my fabulous Raymond and Patty.
James Ellroy's novel, L.A. Confidential. I read it for pleasure. I'd read half a dozen of his other books. I was not looking for a movie at the time. But what happened is, as I read his book, I just got hooked on these characters. And what I thought was Ellroy's incredible accomplishment was that each one of these characters
Suzanne DePass brought me the role. I met her in a restaurant at Morton's in Los Angeles, and she'd sent somebody over to say that she has a script for me and will I read it. And one day after that, she said, you know, this script is somewhat about myself, because I was a VJ, which is a...
After I had finished the White Earp show, they wanted to put me right away into other series, and I didn't want to do it. It was so confining. And I really wanted to do a couple shows on Broadway, which I did. I wanted to do.
We were the challengers to Johnny Carson. They said it couldn't be done, and I was the guy they chose to prove it that year. And so we had some fun for about a year, and that was that, over and out. And then within months after that, I was lucky enough to get the call from Growing Pains saying they were looking for kind of an Ellen.
Every time I sing, well, I was 15. I was married to a Turkish ambassador to
right.
Budapest.
This was in Hungary?
We lived in Ankara, Turkey.
Oh.
That lasted 2 years. At 17, I came to America, and Conrad Hilton married me. He bought one of the hotels here, and he married me. He said he made a package deal.
He was somewhat apprehensive. At the 3rd floor, the staircase ended.
but a fixed ladder led to a trapdoor in the ceiling. In the icy, drafty attic above the boy took the risk of lighting a match. A few moments later, he climbed out through the skylight.
The capital years is very simple. The capital years were 1950s. It was a different world in the 1950s than it became in the 1960s. All of a sudden now, we get into what then became known as rock and roll.
And I remember one country that we went to. I don't remember what country it was, but they put us in separate bedrooms. Well, Ronnie was just having a fit. I don't know if they ever moved us or what, but we didn't like to be apart.